Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the European Volleyball Show. Just for anyone who's watching who's new here, the European Volleyball Show is where myself, Dan, and Rob St. Clair, we go over all the biggest storylines, all the news, everything that's going on in European volleyball, which is a lot right now between the Olympics, EuroBeahVolley coming up, EuroVolley coming up. So we're going to try and get to as much as we can over the next hour or so. And to help me do that today is Rob. Rob, how are you doing?
Great, Dan. It's funny. We were talking before this. We had the show a week ago today. And while that was happening, France was playing Russia, like in the middle of our show in pool play at the Olympics. And clearly a lot has happened since then. And now we get to spend a lot of time breaking down France against Russia again, but on a little bit of a bigger stage this time. So it's been a big week.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy how much volleyball has happened in 1 week, how many great storylines. Like the stuff we talked about last weekend, it's already old news, Rob. There's nothing else to talk about. And why don't we just go right into it and start with France, because I think it's amazing where this team came from at the beginning. So if you guys weren't aware of how the Olympic qualification process works, in 2019, the FIVB hosted Olympic qualifying pools, which is where a lot of the teams qualified. France, however, did not qualify through that, and they had to go through the hardest qualification process that there is for the Olympics, which is the European Continental Qualifiers indoor. Absolute gauntlet, beating Germany 3-0, and that one also beating Slovenia, as you guys probably remember from Vienna, another very strong European team. Bulgaria got knocked out in that tournament, so some of the world's best teams, France had to battle to get to the Olympics. And Rob, like we were saying, last week, there were points where France, I had almost completely written them off, but here they are, playing Russia in the finals for Olympic gold.
Yeah, France's first quarterfinal berth ever in the Olympics. Obviously, their first semifinal berth ever in the Olympics. And now they are guaranteed a medal. All that's left to be decided is the color, gold or silver. It's crazy. You're right, Dan, because this time last week, we were watching them or following along with them playing Russia. But just before that, like when they got kind of steamrolled by the USA 3-0 first thing in the tournament, we were kind of thinking, this might be a repeat of 2016. France is looking like it might be another disappointing Olympics. And then they played Argentina in pools and lost in 5. And that was kind of puzzling as well. But I remember going into the match against the ROC or Russia, they were like, I thought that France might come back and steal one against Russia because they needed it more at the time. Like Russia was undefeated. They were in a comfortable spot in the pool. France was playing basically for their tournament lives. And sure enough, they showed up and beat Russia 3-1. They then had one of the great matches of all time against Brazil in pools, which set an Olympic record for most points ever. I know that one went like 39-37 in the second set and 20-18 in the fifth. So that was ridiculous. And then they beat Tunisia pretty comfortably. So they advanced based on some pretty spectacular turnaround performances. And then they come up against Poland in the quarterfinals, a match that I know Poland was actually a little like scared of all the quarterfinalists they could have drawn. Like France was one of the scary ones, and France played the perfect match. I think they played as well as good of a match in execution and game plan against Poland as they possibly could have played. And they did that. They got a slightly easier semifinal matchup against Argentina, which they won 3-0. And here they are playing for Olympic gold. It's been an unbelievable turnaround. And like some of the individual performances have been pretty spectacular. And I'm sure we'll get into those, but it's that the last possible thing I could have picked this time a week ago is that France would be playing for an Olympic gold medal. It's incredible.
And let's go back to that France. That was a good summary, Rob. But let's go back to that France versus Poland match just for a little bit before we get into our finals preview.
Talk about that
because that was one of the most insane volleyball matches. I think a lot of people were calling it one of like the best volleyball matches they've ever seen. Just the level of execution on offense on both teams was so incredibly high. As you can see, I have the stats pulled up here. Bartosz Kurak, Wilfredo Leon, a huge 1-2 punch there for Poland. 25 points for Kurak, 28 points for Leon, respectively. And then France, a little more balanced. You had Irvin Engapet had some great moments in that match. a lot of errors at the beginning, but Engabet came up huge towards the end when it mattered. And you had Trevor Clevenot, great story of this tournament. He's firmly established as the starter, 14 points. Brizard coming in. I think for me, Brizard was the MVP of that match and has played fantastic volleyball so far. And yeah, just, I mean, that the level of volleyball we're seeing at this Olympic tournament is unbelievable.
You're absolutely right about Clevenot in the semis as well against Argentina. He hit well over 500, like close to 600 efficiency, which is ridiculous. I'm just trying to pull up some numbers. What Irvin Ingapet did in sets 4 and 5 against Poland, I think he hit in the 700s, like over 70% efficiency in those two sets. He really turned it on and was clutch when he needed to be, including going 4 for 4 in set 5. And for Poland, man, what kind of a head-scratching, disappointing performance. Wilfredo Leon, by the way, with one of the great matches of all time. 28 points, 28 attacking points alone, 28 for 41, hitting 61% efficiency in a 5-set game. Like he looked like the best player in the world. I think obviously we would agree that he is, but some of the shots that he was hitting were the classic, like Wilfredo Leon, like literally one human being on the planet can hit these shots, and he was doing it on command. And the difference for Poland was that second outside hitter position. Which absolutely no production out of that spot, which we've talked about it all the time, Dan. The deepest team in the world by far at the outside hitter position, not even close, by far the deepest team in the world at that spot. And they couldn't find a second player outside of Wilfredo Leon to produce. And I think that was the difference for Poland. That's why they couldn't quite get it done.
Yeah, like you said, Wilfredo Leon had absolutely, it looked like prime Zenit Kazan Leon, just, not holding back at all, hitting around blocks, hitting over blocks, doing anything he wanted in that match. But I cannot believe, I agree with you, Rob, I cannot believe that between Kubiak, Kamil Semeniuk, and Alexander Slivka, 3 absolute A+ top tier outside hitters, they couldn't find a little bit more production. I'm not sure if it was nerves, if it was not connecting with Fabian Drija, but it didn't, this Polish team had so much pressure, so much expectation. I feel like maybe they were almost thinking ahead past France, thinking to the semifinals and finals, when really they should have been able to beat the team that was in front of them during this match. France also with a fantastic blocking performance, if I remember correctly in this one.
I think the biggest thing for France was that they handled Poland from the service line, that they passed the ball above average in France's like tournament long standards. But more importantly than that, I think they only gave up 2 aces for the whole match. And against Poland, that's enormous with servers like Leon, Biniek, Kurek, etc. If you can only give up 2 aces to that entire team of guys in 5 sets, you have a much better chance of at least hanging around in the match. And I thought their high ball offense was outstanding as well. So they were hitting really well over, off, and around the block. Patry was excellent in relation to the block, and then France's blocking performance in particular, like you said. But I want to go back to the Polish outside hitter thing, the second outside. We were talking about Mikhail Kubiak a lot going into the tournament, and we saw him on the sideline for a good portion of pool play. The reports were that he was dealing with some back issues, like struggling with a tight back, and that's a difficult one to fight through as a volleyball player. We both, Dan, made the point going into the Olympics that we assumed that Mikhail Kubiak would start, but that didn't necessarily mean that he should. And I think our point was proven perfectly in that quarterfinal against France. Kubiak started all of the first 3 sets, and he hit 0. Like 0% efficiency was a non-factor, or if not a detriment offensively. But then Alexander Slivka came in, started in set 4, and he wasn't good either. Negative 33% efficiency. I've never seen Slivka hit negative, especially in a match of this caliber. And then Semeniuk came in the 5th, but it was too little too late at that point. Or in the 4th, excuse me, he didn't even play in the 5th. So I'm stunned at Poland's inability to find a second outside hitter when it mattered out of a pool of talent that's deeper than anywhere else in the world. I just couldn't believe that.
So do you think it was a mistake then not bringing maybe a Bartosz Bedors as your other outside hitter to get maybe a guy who's maybe could produce a little more offense and be that third outside hitter, or Bartosz
No, I
Szulek or
think
Thomas Fornal.
I think the mistake was not putting in Semeniuk earlier. He
Yeah.
came in as a sub in set one and as a sub in set four, and went, I think, 3 for 6 is what I'm looking at statistically right now. They just need to put him in earlier.
Yeah.
There's no way Kubiak should have lasted 3 full sets. Absolutely no way. Semeniuk should have gone in way earlier than that.
I agree with you. And also a couple really good points from the chat. John Suin, welcome, regular watcher of the show, and Usov as well, saying Poland underutilized their middles quite a bit. And like we were talking about how Poland has some of the best outside hitters in the world, they might be even better at middle between Kochanowski, Piotr Nowakowski, and Mateusz Biniak, 3 extremely adept offensive middles. And I totally agree with that. I'm not sure why the game plan was to not set them as enough, because on the one hand, I feel like they could have upped their hitting efficiency, scored a lot more easier points. And also, I feel like Nicholas Legov, who had 5 blocks in the game, I feel like he had a bit of free reign to go up and close out those blocks on the outside hitters. So I think that was definitely a tactical mistake, whether that was a little bit reception, whether that was Vital Heinen's game plan coming in, or whether it was maybe the setting limitations of Fabian Drija. I'm not sure which one of those, but you guys are right in the chat. That 100% was a factor.
Absolutely. Only 22 middle attack attempts in all 5 sets for Poland. That's not nearly enough. And especially when you're lacking production from one of the outside hitters, why wouldn't you go to the middle more? That makes sense to me. We've talked a little bit about the shortcomings of Fabian Drija before, but an international setter has to be able to process that on his own, not necessarily need to take it as input from the sidelines. Like, you've got to know that if you're not getting it out of Kubiak or Slivka or whoever, you've got to know that you need to go to the middle a little more to make up for that, or at least to keep the French block honest. Like, that's low-level volleyball philosophy, is that you need to keep the middle involved. And I was really confused that wasn't happening for Poland.
Yeah. Anyway, Poland will have some time to regroup, rethink, figure out what went wrong. European EuroVolley starts pretty much right away. So we'll see what squad they decide to send to that. But it's going to be interesting. They sent their full team back in 2019. Hopefully they'll send it again, because they're going to be contenders again in that tournament. And it would be a shame for a Polish team this good to not medal during a summer like this. But Rob, let's, in the interest of time here, is there anything you want to say about France, Argentina before we go to Brazil, ROC?
Not much about France, Argentina. I think it was more of the same for France. 2 matches in a row for Jean Patry, over 50% hitting efficiency. And between the 2 matches, Poland and Argentina, that's 8 sets of volleyball. Guess how many errors Jean Patry made in 8 sets of volleyball?
I'm gonna guess. Oh, I know the answer, Rob, but let's say less than 1.
One
Oh,
error.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
he made on the stat sheet. There's 1 error against Poland and 0 against Argentina
Wow.
in 8 sets in the Olympic knockout round. Over 50% efficiency. Jean Patry has been absolutely unbelievable for France, and
So,
we'll have a big test against probably the best blocking team in the world in the finals.
and I don't really know if I fully saw this coming during this club season in Milano in the Italian First League or in VNL, because we know he's improved a lot. For me, he was the clear starter over Stefan Boyer, but I definitely didn't expect him to play at this top tier level.
Yeah, agreed. It's nice to see him separate himself in that way, because we've actually seen this issue with a couple teams. Like the Turkish women, for example, can't decide which opposite they're going to play in a given match. Jean Patry has taken that job and clearly cemented it as his, and he deserves it. He's playing out of his mind right now.
Yeah. All right. I actually have a really fun question in the chat. Cineric, again, recognize your name. Great contributor to the show. What are your expectations for Poland in 2024? Maybe just, do you think they're going to lose? Anyone's going to retire? It seems like Kubiak, that may be it for the team. It seems like Vital Heinen will probably move on. Potentially Bartosz Kurek as well. I could see not participating 2024, but
maybe Zatorsky. I'm not sure how old he
is.
Zatorsky. You definitely get Leon back. You probably get all 3 middles back, or at least
Piotr. I think Nowakowski. This might be his last one.
Yeah, he might be done. But you get Biniak and Kochanowski back. Like, that's plenty. Semeniuk's young. Slivka's young. You get Leon, of course. Even if Kurek retires, you have Kaczmarek, who's really good. So I'm not sure about the ages of the setters. You just need a libero to step up and maybe fill Zatorski's spot, and then Poland, you're in exactly the same spot as you were before. So I think the setters are pretty much interchangeable, whether Zizko or Womach move on or they don't. I don't think that's that big of a change in any direction. Poland, as long as Wilfredo Leon suits up for Poland, they will be one of the best teams in the world for the next 2 quads, I'd say. So they're going to have another significant chance in Paris. But I think the coaching change, or the potential coaching change, I don't want to guarantee that, but I know that Heinen's contract is up with Poland at the end of this year, and whether or not they renew it remains to be seen. So if a coaching change happens, that could be the biggest change for Poland, with perhaps a total culture shift or a strategy shift of how they run their team. So that would be very interesting to see, especially with World Championships coming up next year, which is obviously a very different calendar than normal cycles.
Mm-hmm. And just for anyone who doesn't follow the Polish league that closely, probably the next libero up for Poland would be Damian Voshishek, who we've seen before, who I think he's maybe not as good as Zatorskiy, but still one of the best liberos in the world, so you're not downgrading much. And for setters, if the Gregor Zlomaj and Fabian Drzyzga retire, Marcin Janis seems to be the next guy up. Has been improving a lot. Took a decent Trefl Gdansk team, in my opinion, made them a lot better than maybe their talent indicated. So Poland will be fine. I still think they're going to be a top 2024 contender. But anyway, let's move on to another fantastic match that we have to get over before we preview the finals. Absolutely insane Brazil ROC. Brazil winning 3-1. ROC winning 3-1, of course. Russia playing in the finals. Rob, what were your first thoughts on this match?
That comeback that Russia made in set 3, it was one of the great comebacks in volleyball history.
And Evandro in the chat is already he brought it up before we even brought it up, because that's the big story here.
I believe Brazil thought that they had already won the 3rd set. Yeah, he's absolutely right. 20-12. 20-12 and 23-19. Just an all-time comeback from Russia, like playing under the Russian Olympic Committee label, but I think we're just going to call them Russia. The run to get back even close, and then 2 blocks in a row for Ivan Yakovlev to get them level at 23-23. And then I can't remember. I think Kurkayev with a block to win at 26-24. That was absolutely insane. That block move, we talked about this before the show, Dan. I have to say it on the show. The block move that Yakovlev made to block Yoandi Leal to get within 1, I think it was at 21-23 to get to 22-23, is one of the great blocking plays I've ever seen in a volleyball game ever. Yakovlev jumped fully to block the middle, landed, then jumped again to block the outside hitter, got his hands just over in time, and stuff blocked one of the best outside hitters in the world. That was one of the great singular blocking moves I've ever seen in a volleyball game. And then he backs it up the next play with stuff blocking Wallace to the deep part of the court. It was crazy. And if you don't think of Ivan Yakovlev as a top 5 middle in the world before that, I would hope that you do by now, because he's been tremendous this Olympic Games. And then,
Rob, before we go on, I have two Yakovlev related questions for you, because you're right. He is an incredible blocker. I mean, the stuff he's able to do with his hands, how good he is at late blocking is something else. So my question, is he the best blocking middle in the world if you ignore serving, backward defense setting, or attacking? Would you take Ivan Yakovlev as the best blocker? Strictly
very
blocking?
Possibly. Very possibly. I think he's a little bit of a better blocker than Robert Landy Simon is, although it's pretty close. You've made the point a few times, Dan, that Yakovlev's hands and his arms and the way that he uses them, regardless of where his body is unique in style to him, and it's better than anyone else in the world, I think, by a wide margin. He doesn't need to get his body or his feet there to put up a good, disciplined, and useful block, and there are just very few players in the history of the game that can get away with it like he can, just putting his arms in the right spot. He has crazy long arms, which really helps, but he's so good with his eyes and putting his hands in the right spot, no matter where his body is, that he can be really productive. His block touch rate, in addition to just his stuff blocks, are off the charts for a middle blocker. So he has a very serious case for best middle blocker in the world in just the blocking phase. For
sure. And Rob, I would put him, other than Robert Landy Simon, who I still have to put as number 1. I think if I'm doing a middle blocker draft for volleyball players, I'm probably taking Yakovlev second, even over probably over Streko Lizinac and Lucas Satkamp right now.
I agree. And Lukas Satkamp, I think, is third because he's had an unbelievable Olympic tournament. But I would agree. Yakovlev, I would definitely draft second among middles, especially because he's so young. What is he, 25?
Yeah, he was part of that. I believe he was part of that Russian team with Volkov and Kliuka and Poletayev that had just that amazing run through the underage tournaments in both IFBB and CV. So that's that golden generation of Russia. We're seeing it manifest now with an Olympic berth in the finals.
And we've got to talk about and sing the praises of the legendary Maxim Mikhailov.
Yeah,
that performance in the semifinals against Brazil was all time. 48% efficiency, 20 for 33 and 2 blocks, including like a block very, very late in set 4 that got them 2 points clear and allowed them to side out to win the match. He did some things hitting out of system that almost no player in volleyball history can do. Just such phenomenal, like spatial awareness, arm, hand contact, vision of the block, range, intelligence, like level-headedness. He's just amazing. He can do absolutely everything, and he's done it. You made a point on the podcast on your show, Dan, that he's been like an Olympic factor since 2012. He's been an Olympic factor since 2008. He came out in 2008 when he was like 20 years old, I think.
Good point. Good point.
And almost single-handedly carried Russia to a gold medal match. They barely lost to a phenomenally good USA team in the semifinals that year. And it was pretty much exclusively because Maxim Mikhailov was so good. He has been, like now in his 4th Olympics, has been an absolutely key player now for 4 straight Russian teams that have had a chance to medal all 4 times. And now he has a chance for a 2nd Olympic gold. He's been the best player for Russia. He's been the most dependable, the most consistent player probably in the world this decade. And I still don't think we talk about how good he is enough for what he deserves. He was amazing.
And Rob, remember when we tried to make him play outside hitter on Zenit Kazan? Remember that?
Oh, man. Yeah. And I think we all saw how that worked out, and we see how it's working out now. And I don't know how that was ever even attempted.
Yeah, but I think one thing I just want to say about Mikhailov is his ability to hit the outside of hands, hitting especially from position 2, or position 1, the C ball and D ball. He is just so amazing. He like if there was a basketball hoop right where the blocker's hand is in that position, like he would hit like 70% of the time because he's just so precise, so accurate. That's that one shot, and that's such a hard shot for blockers to deal with too, and defenders, because it's often bouncing off the outside hand and going in a really tough angle for the defender in position 5 to go get, because it's spinning and it's going the opposite direction. So that, he's perfected that shot. I mean, he has other shots in this game too, but that's one thing that stood out to me in this game. Maxim Mikhailov, just how good he is at tooling that outside finger of the left side blocker.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the shot where he is the best in the world as far as opposites go. You're right, the precision that requires, but also the bad situations that he's getting his team out of by hitting that shot. Like often the ball's coming from 20 feet off the net, maybe a platform set from the libero, maybe like way over his shoulder. Like the adjustments that he makes to keep his body behind the ball and open up his shoulders and still hit that inside to out shot is just ridiculous. And he's so reliable and consistent at it. And a matchup against France in the finals against left side blockers Irvin Ingapeth and Trevor Kleveno, who are not the biggest outside blockers in the world, nor are they the most disciplined, especially in Ingapeth's case. There's a chance that Mikhailov can have a field day against these guys, hit that shot over and over again and hit at similar efficiency. And if he does, I think if Russia wins this match, I would have to bet on Mikhailov being the MVP of the tournament and cementing his legacy as one of the great players of all time, if he can do this again in the biggest match of his life.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, that's probably the matchup I like the best in Russia's favor, because Engapet's really struggled with his blocking. He's gotten a lot better in other respects since our last time we talked, Rob, but the blocking has still been an issue. Trevor Kleveno, again, He's mechanically good, but doesn't get very high on his block, which is perfect for Maxim Mikhailov to play with. So yeah, like you said, I have it pulled up here, Rob. 28 kills for Maxim Mikhailov in 2008 versus the USA. So 28 for 52. So he's doing the same thing.
That's what I'm talking about. That was 13 years ago.
Okay, guys. Asking everyone watching in the chat, how many players can you guys find from 2008 that are still playing in this Olympic cycle? I'm interested to see who else you can dig up.
From 2008, Bruno was on the team for Brazil, but he didn't start all that consistently. So that's one.
Matt Anderson, was he on the bench?
No,
back
Matt
then?
Matt Anderson was not on the Olympic roster in 2008.
Yeah, so if you guys can think of someone, or Rob, if you have a couple more you can think of, then let's hear it. But I want to go on because there's a great discussion in the chat too right now over Alan Souza. And Rob, we were both talking about this exact thing before we got on live here. And Wallace Souza, in my opinion, is probably one of the biggest coaching mistakes of this tournament, is not putting in Alan Souza a little bit sooner than Wallace Souza, because Alan has been playing great, fresh legs, a lot younger, great attacker, still like one of the best opposites in the world, in my opinion. Like the talent is not that big a drop off, even from Wallace playing in his prime. And Wallace, I think, do you have the numbers in front of you, Rob, in terms of?
I do. 10 for 27, 11% efficiency with 7 errors against Russia. That's just clearly not going to get the job done. And it's weird with Wallace. He's very hot and cold. Sometimes he's the best player in the world. Like in VNL, when Brazil won VNL, he was unbelievable. He was very, very good. He was peak Wallace. He was exactly what Brazil needed him to be. But for the most part in this Olympics, it hasn't been that. And I agree. I think Alan Souza had to enter the match much, much earlier in like a serious main opposite role, like not just coming in as part of a 6-2, which Brazil really likes to use. I think he came in the second set against the Rock or Russia when that set was already out of hand, and that was it. And I agree that coaching move had to be made earlier, kind of similar to Mikhail Kubiak playing too long for Poland against France in the quarters. That had to happen earlier, especially in the Olympic Games. Everything on the line, elimination, like chance to play for a gold medal. If it's not working, and it's clearly not working, you don't have enough time or enough points to give up and play around with it to just let it keep happening. I think you've got to pull the plug a little faster.
Yeah, and I think maybe it was overall maybe a bit of not the right strategy too, because a guy like Wallace, we saw in VNL finals, he was like he won MVP. He was one of the best players. He was completely dominant. So I think maybe they knew Wallace still had it in him, but I think his legs were not all there. I think he was tired. I think he was not jumping. And the guy who relies so much on his jump, like Wallace, who's not the tallest opposite. So I think they should have played Alan Souza a lot more. Maybe if they planned on starting Wallace this late, play Alan Souza more during the group stage. He's very competent. Save his legs, especially after you just got done, like in VNL, playing all those games and then training hard for a couple weeks before you come to Tokyo, and then playing again every pool phase match. I think it just got to Wallace by the end of the tournament. But I mean, still, again, one of the best players, best opposites of all time. So I can't take anything away from Wallace. He's had so many big moments, so many great matches, but unfortunately, didn't come up in this one, Rob.
No, he didn't. And I think we can gloss over the bronze medal match, which is happening tonight, my time, tomorrow night for you, or tomorrow
give your prediction, Rob. Give your prediction. We don't have to break it down.
I was about to. I'm saying Brazil 3-0, and it won't even be close. I'm saying Brazil 3.
I'm in the exact same. All right.
They played in pools. We got to talk about quickly, Dan. All 4 teams from Pool B in the semifinals in the men's tournament, which is just ridiculous. So that guarantees that both semis and both medal matches are rematches from pools. And Argentina was up 2-0 on Brazil in pools and had one of the all-time chokes, in my opinion, up 17-11 in the fourth. Up 2-1, let Brazil come back and beat them in 5. I think if Brazil were playing against anyone else in the bronze medal match, they might not care enough to play for bronze, but it's Argentina. Those two teams don't like each other. Big South American rivalry there. I picked Brazil 3-0, and now we can move on to the gold match just briefly.
All right. let's preview the gold medal match. But first, guys, everyone watching this video, if you give the video a thumbs up, like if you're enjoying the conversation between me and Rob, if you're not subscribed to European Volleyball, make sure to do that. And of course, we love hearing from you guys. The chat, we're reading the chat. You guys talking right now. Love to see the discussion. Just before we go, a couple points. Yeah, Shimizu, Rob, was another one. The opposite for Japan.
I'm glad somebody brought that up in the chat. I did not think about that.
And I think that's the only one we missed. Ivandro Pires, who I think is a Brazilian fan, says Mauricio Souza is too slow for a middle blocker. Isaac is faster and has a bigger serve. I actually kind of would agree with that. Mauricio Souza was, again, another player, great in VNL, but I'm a huge Isaac fan. I think he's like one of the most underrated players because he never gets to start on Brazil, even though if you watch the Brazilian league, you know he kills it every single season there. But yeah, no, good points from the chat here. Another Cineric said Allen wasn't still that good when he came in the game. That's another fair point. Maybe that wasn't the silver bullet that we kind of thought it might be.
All right, a couple of people asking to talk about USA.
Go for it.
If you want to talk about more about the USA men, follow me on Instagram at rstclair1. I did a lot of USA related stuff for the men this Olympics, and so we're not going to spend that much time in this show because this is a European show. But clearly a disappointing Olympics for the US. Not making it out of pools for the first time since 2000 is objectively a failure. I will say that their 3 losses in pools to Russia, Brazil, and Argentina, they got those 3 teams on their absolute best days. All 3 of those teams played unbelievably well against the US, and the US's serving was the worst maybe I've ever seen, and it was clearly mental by the end of the pool play phase. It was just a huge mental issue for the whole team, top to bottom. And if you want more on that, follow me on Instagram and check out a bunch of the videos that I posted about the US. So I think we can move on to the men's gold medal match before we talk about the women.
Let's do it. The finals: Russia versus ROC, the Rock. Rob, I got some questions for you here. Do you want to hear them?
Yeah, that's it.
First one: Taniuti or Brizard?
Brizard. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Brizard is what has had France playing so well. He came in off the bench against Poland and was tremendous. He started against Argentina, was very good. And just even though I think we would agree that Taniuti is one of the best setters in the world, the size and athleticism that Brizard brings is a must against Russia, an absolute must. I think you have to have that. Brizard's made a huge difference in the blocking phase for France. He's made some really good moves, just shut down some people one-on-one. I think you've got to have that against a team as big and physical as Russia, and it's what has gotten France to this point in the elimination stage. I think it's got to be Brizard.
So I have 2 counterpoints to that because I think I kind of disagree with you. Taniuti was in the game when they beat Russia, or they beat Russia in the pool phase. Taniuti was the starter. He's already proven he can do it during the tournament. And also, remember where Brizard played at the last club season, Rob?
True.
And who he played with and who his coach was.
Okay,
there might be some Russians. By the way, I got this from someone on Instagram. I forget the name, but he made a very good point that this Russian team knows Brizard's tendencies. They know his setting positions. They know his set spots. They know where he likes to go in certain positions, certain situations. Which is obviously all these teams do a crazy amount of scouting, but a lot of the middle blockers, especially Yakov, probably has it just ingrained in his brain where Brizard likes to go. So Taniuti, a guy that hasn't played in Russia the last. Did Taniuti play in Zenit Kazan?
He played in Zenit Kazan in the early 2010s.
Yeah, but still, that not a factor in this. So that's why I think
you may have convinced me. Wow. Yeah, you totally. That's such a good point.
Also not original. Someone on Instagram messaged me this, so I can't take full credit.
Fair enough. Yeah, nobody in the world has a better scouting report against Antoine Brizard than Russia does, than his club coach and his club middle blocker. And dang, that's a really good point. And somebody in the chat made a good point that Taniuti may be needed to mess with the Russian block. Yes. And I think there's an element to that too. But there's also a tremendous advantage to Brizard as a blocker and as a server. I think you might need that more against Russia, but that is a very interesting decision for Coach Laurent Tilly in what may be his last match ever coaching France, unless he's doing European Championships as well. I'm not sure.
All right. So my next question for you, Rob, Dmitry Volkov or Podlishnik?
Volkov. You
Volkov.
got to start Volkov. He's who got you there. He didn't have all that good of a game against against Brazil in the semis. He was unbelievable against Brazil in pool play, but he went to the bench in the third. Podleshnik came on and was a big part of that huge comeback. But that doesn't mean that you change the starting lineup to what your strategy's been this whole tournament. I think you still put Volkov in there. But now it's nice for Russia now that you have more confidence in Podleshnik coming off the bench than maybe you would have before that happened. He came off in a big situation, played pretty well. Then in the fourth, he got stuff blocked a couple times and went back to the bench. Volkov came back in, but it's nice now that Samelvolo knows what he's going to get out of that spot. So I think you start Volkov, but you are more comfortable going to the bench if you need to.
Yes. Okay. I like that answer. I would probably go with Volkov as well, especially I think maybe if you need, like, again, the same situation, you just need to steady the ship a bit. You need consistency. Maybe you go for Podleshnik for points, but yeah, Dmitry Volkov overall. Okay, and another question. Which team has the blocking advantage? The French team, which is, had like 10, 12 blocks against Poland, or Russia, which, as we know, I think is the best team in the tournament if you look at opponents hitting efficiency?
I can't pick against Russia as the best blocking team in the world, in my opinion. France's block has, I think, overperformed expectations. They were incredible against Poland in a way that I really didn't expect them to be so significant on the game. But I can't pick against the Russian block. I think they have just too much size and confidence and discipline blocking at all three positions. And it's good pointing about the scouting report. Whoever they get, I think they'll be prepared for the hitters that they're going to see. And Jean Patry, like I mentioned earlier, is going to have a test for real, a very big test to continue his tremendous play in these playoffs. But he will have a bigger block in this match than he may have ever faced before. And
not just a bigger block, you have probably by far the best outside hitter blockers in Igor Kluka and Dmitry Volkov.
Those are two massive individuals that he's going to have to contend with. And the middles, like we talked about what Yakovlev can do, and Volvic is even bigger than Yakovlev.
We're going to see Volvic or Kurkiev, because we saw a lot of Kurkiev in the last against Brazil.
Yeah, he came off the bench and was nice in the third, but he did some like kind of head-scratching, boneheaded things at the same time. Although I think he got the block to seal the set. But I think you go with Volvic. He's what got you there. I don't think that the starting lineup will change. But again, it's nice to know what you're going to get from a guy off the bench. I think that's valuable.
All right, and last question, and I'm putting you on the spot on a lot of these, Rob, but because this is something we were maybe wrong about, or specifically I was wrong about in Pankov versus Kobzar. Because Kobzar started the entire tournament. Pankov's been great as a serving sub. I think he's done a great job in that role. But Kobzar has just been fantastic, seems to have a great connection with the entire team. Very steady running the offense. He's not running it in any creative or spectacular, impressive fashion, but it's just consistent. Rob, what do you think? Do you think what do we miss with Kobzar here?
I think it's a product of the system and of a whole lot of trust between Samelvolo and what Kobzar is going to do out there. It's kind of Alexander Butko-like in that it's the same level of consistency and nothing ever all that flashy or unexpected, but he puts the ball where it needs to be when it needs to be there. And you made a point on the podcast that he connects better with Mikhailov than maybe Pankov does. I think that's a pretty good point. And Pankov's been so good as a service sub. Like, I think the best service sub in the tournament by far, especially in terms of ace to error ratio, that Samelvolo feels really good about using him there and hasn't really needed him to come in and set except in a couple moments in pools, I think. I think Kobzar's been pretty good. Yeah,
I would agree with that. And yeah, I think actually that's a good point, that he's just reminiscent of Butko. Like, it's very similar style of play. All right, Rob, we got to move on here. That's a great job recapping the indoor men, but let's make our predictions. Yeah, of course.
Make our picks. I'm going Russia 3-1. I think the match in pools, which by the way was happening literally while we were doing this show 1 week ago today. That match was won by France because France needed it more, in my opinion. France had their backs against the wall in pools. Russia was in a comfortable spot to advance. I think that showed. This time it's completely different. I think the Russian bloc will have a lot to do with this match. And while France did a really good job mitigating aces against Poland, I don't think they'll have the same luck against mitigating the block of Russia. Russia can put on service pressure. I think Pankov will come off the bench and have something to say in the late stages of one of these sets with some service pressure. But the one thing that France can't really control all that well is the Russian just massive block they're going to put up against them. I think Russia has a little bit of advantage in that area. I think they're going to be able to side out well enough because France isn't that good of a statistical serving team. I see Russia 3-1, and I see Maxim Mikhailov MVP of the tournament.
All right, I'm picking the other side. I'm going to keep it the same as on my podcast. I'm going to pick France 3-2. I think you're seeing the best offense in the tournament versus the best block defense. And I think in any sport, but especially volleyball, top-tier offense, it's going to beat top-tier defense. And I think that's what's going to happen in this game. And I'm going to say Trevor Kleinman, MVP. Maybe they wouldn't give it to him. I'm not sure who decides this. They probably still give it to Engapet. But I think Trevor Kleinman is playing like one of the best outside hitters in the world right now. And hopefully he keeps it up for the club season. And yeah, I think France, just the story, the journey is so amazing, Rob. Barely qualifying for the whole tournaments in the European Continental Qualifiers. And also this group playing together. Taniuti, Engapet, Grebennikov. They've been playing together for the entire decade. These guys were, we have photos of them with blonde hair together, like in their youth teams, the European Youth Championships. Like these guys have gone through it all, and what a perfect ending it would be for them to win this Olympics together.
Well said. I think if France wins and Patry doesn't win MVP, I think that's robbery in my opinion. if he has a halfway decent performance in the finals and France wins, I think you got to give it to him. Kleinman, though, has been the biggest pleasant surprise about this French run. I could see it happening, Dan. I really could. I didn't think they could beat Poland. I thought it was possible for them to beat Poland, but they really put together all the details about playing the matchup. And they may have gotten a little bit lucky with the second Polish outside hitter not being a factor at all. It's very possible for France to win this match. Timing wise, it's on Saturday. It's 7:15 a.m. my time. I think that's 2:15 p.m. or 14:15 CET.
Right. The time's an important thing to keep in mind. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
So all eyes on that game for sure. Okay, before we move on to the women's bronze medal match where Serbia is playing, I actually saw a really fun question I wanted to answer in the chat. Langdon asks, how do you guys think that the play will translate into the club season? Which club do you think is looking a lot better maybe than they did at the beginning of the Olympics? And you can think about your answer for a bit, but I think I have one that's a very obvious pick for me, and that's Milano in Italy, because they have Jean Patry, who, if he plays like this, he's going to be one of the best opposites in Superliga. They have Yuki Ishikawa, another player who's had an incredible tournament and I think has risen to stock, and also Barthélemy Chinagnes, another player who over the summer has proven that he's France's #1 middle blocker. He's an elite scorer. He was top of scoring for middles at both the VNL and at the Olympics. So I think that's a team to look out for next season. Any ideas?
That's a pretty good take. I think Jastrzębski Węgiel in Poland would be mine that comes to mind quickly. Taniuti is going there from Zaksa, having won Champions League, and Trevor Kleinman is going there.
Unconfirmed, Rob. Unconfirmed.
I thought it was. It's all right. Well, close enough. I don't think we would be surprised to hear that news.
Don't worry.
Okay, and to fill a hole left by Tine Ernout going to Zenit St. Petersburg, I think.
No, it looks like a massive upgrade.
Yeah, doesn't it? Yeah, so I think Jastrzębski stands to gain a lot from this Olympic momentum from a couple of those French guys. But that's a really good question. I think we should give it a week to think about that in more detail and answer it next week.
Oh, well, we'll have more content for you guys when we get closer to the club season, once all the EuroVolley craziness dies down, and we can dive back into club season for sure. But Rob, that's we got to talk about women's indoor. Unfortunately, Serbia losing losing the semifinal match against your USA, who's playing incredible volleyball right now, and they will be playing South Korea in the bronze medal match. What do you think about that matchup, Rob?
Well, first of all, before this Olympics even happened, I set the line at over under 2.5 European medals. And I just want to say that I absolutely nailed that because
Yeah.
we have two medals guaranteed on the
Yeah.
men's side in all European gold medal game, and Serbia with a very good chance to win the third against Korea for bronze. So um, I want to talk about Serbia against the USA really quick because I watched that match. It was just like in time for me to watch it last night, like early in the morning your time, last night my time. The U.S. wrote the book on how to defend against Stoyanovskiy. It was the best I've ever seen a team play against her. They made good disciplined moves to at least touch her on the right side, but their backcourt defense in position one was outstanding. They had Jordan Larson, usually the middle back defender, almost all the way in the corner of the court, like on the end line, and the right back defender, either Poulter or Annie Drews, like pretty much right next to her. They had both those defenders so deep in the position one corner that they were able to touch a huge percentage of Tiana Boskovich's attacks, like way more than I think I've ever seen another team against her. And Serbia was just so incredibly one-dimensional, like even more one-dimensional than Italy with Paleogonu in pools, in my opinion. It was almost painful to watch the offense default to Boskovic just so hard, even when it wasn't working. They needed just somebody else on the pins. And I think the coverage that, or the broadcast that I was watching here in the US did a pretty good job of documenting Brankica Mihailovic is dealing with some back issues right now. And I think she played a little bit in pools and did not look good. They claimed that she was available for this match, but Coach Zoran Terzic like confirmed that she was really struggling with it. And they missed her desperately. They needed somebody else to score some points. Serbia's second leading scorer in this entire Olympic tournament is Melina Rossich, a middle, which is absolutely unheard of. And she had like maybe 20% of the output that Boskovic has had. It's the imbalance of that, like, got Serbia to the semifinals, but with a team with as good of a game plan as the USA had, it was never going to get them past that. Boskovic, let me pull up the stats really quick, but nowhere close to her normal efficiency.
I believe 14 points, 14 kills, 11 attacking errors. I was just looking at it.
Yeah, 16 points, 11 errors on 41 attempts. That's 12% efficiency. That's just not good enough.
And yeah, unfortunately, Turkey not making it through as well, Rob. I just want to touch on that real quick because I thought they actually had a very good shot against South Korea, but Kim had like a vintage Kim game, played incredibly.
Kim Young-Kyun, one of an all-time vintage performance. So I just did a EuroVolley preview video here on this same YouTube channel for Turkey, where I talked a little bit about their Olympic performance because I recorded it right after they lost to Korea. And one of my takes, Dan, was that we actually had a discussion about this coming into the Olympics for Turkey. You and I have thought that a different setter and a different opposite would start. You thought that it was going to be Naz and Mariam Bose. I thought it might be John Suazbe and Ebra Karakurt. And we saw both. We saw both in both different combinations of each position throughout the Olympics. I'm not I went back and researched it before I recorded that video, and I couldn't really find a match where one combination of setter and opposite started and finished the same match and like played all the way through. Like, Gudetti was extremely quick to go to the bench and cycle out those two positions. And it's a tough job. It's a tough decision because both those setters and both those opposites are absolutely world class. But I think Turkey really needed some consistency and just some consistency of expectations, especially with the setter. It's difficult to change the setter in and out like that and have some continuity with the offense. I was surprised with how often that he was flip-flopping with those key positions. And I think the middles clearly were not the problem. Ada Erdem and Zahra Gunesh were tremendous. I don't think that was the problem at all, but I thought that Turkey really needed a little bit of consistency out of setter and opposite. and they didn't get that. And I thought that might have just been the difference.
Yeah, and I think you pick one and then you go with it, right?
Exactly.
Like
Exactly.
You don't want players to be playing nervous, feel like they're one mistake away from being subbed out. I prefer when coaches let players play through mistakes. I'm kind of contradicting myself since Wallace, we were just making fun of the Brazilians for not switching Wallace, but I think it's different with setting the setter position because it's as much as anything, it's the most mental position in my opinion. So you really need to have 100% focus and 100% intensity in the game to succeed at the setter position. And yeah, Turkey, we'll see. They're definitely going to be a threat. EuroVolley women, we'll get to that later. But you're right. Maybe this lineup's better suited for a tournament like that, where you have so many games that you want to switch it up. You want to keep teams guessing. But when it's an Olympic quarterfinal match, I think you want to have your lineup set before the match and stick for the most part to that lineup.
It's a great point that you made about a player playing differently when he or she knows that one or two mistakes might land him on the bench. That's a huge factor mentally for any player at any position. I think that's a really good point. And I think this is a missed opportunity for Turkey because the draw that they got in the quarterfinals with Korea was pretty good. I think the only better matchup they could have gotten, like the USA had the Dominican Republic and handled them pretty easily, but Turkey had that was a winnable matchup and a winnable, like a chance to play for an Olympic medal.
And they almost did win too.
They almost did. I think it was 15-12 in the fifth. Like it was close, really close.
But yeah, it's too bad. I really would have liked to see a Serbia-Turkey bronze medal match for this medal instead of maybe South Korea, all the credit to them. They played well. They deserve their spot. But
I want to say, Dan, that in our preview videos that we recorded for the Olympics on this channel, there are people in the comments making fun of us like, oh, there's no way Korea advances out of pools. They had a terrible VNL. There's no way they're going to advance. And here they are playing for a medal. So I want to throw that one out there. Don't ever doubt Kim Young-Kim. Don't ever doubt her.
How many times have we seen Kim have performances like this? Like if you've been watching Champions League, if you've been watching volleyball over the past 10 years, like Kim is an absolute legend.
Never doubt her. She's so good.
All right, so the actual game, Serbia versus South Korea, do you think Korea has the scouting report on Boskovic now? Do you think they're going to defend her like the USA did, or are they too inflexible and Boskovic is just going to be able to rip them apart?
That is a great question and great points on both sides. I think that the world, or especially the teams that are going to have to play against Serbia and EuroVolley, owe the USA a debt of gratitude for the film that people now have on how to slow down Tijana Boskovic. We'll see if Korea can put that in practice fast enough. I think it's gonna have to come from block defense, or from defense rather, for them, not the block, because the USA a much stronger blocking team than Korea. I think it might be sort of a head-to-head battle between Boskovic and Kim, and that's going to be electric. So I'm excited to see that. But I do expect Serbia to make enough adjustments, and I think that they match up better outside of just Boskovic versus Korea than they did against the US. I would pick Serbia to win that match and take the bronze medal. But again, I'm not going to sit here and doubt Kim. I think we've all learned our lesson on that one. I think it'll be a good match.
Right. I think I'm going to pick Serbia as well to win the bronze. I think that players like Bianca Busa, I think players like Jelena Blagojevic, I think players who struggled maybe against the bigger blocking teams of the USA, or like the block defense, I guess, because also the back row defense of the USA is unbelievable. I think that they're going to have a lot more attacking angles against Korea, and I think that they won't have to rely on Boskovic quite as much. And I think also Serbia a big advantage in the middle with Melina Rossich
for sure
and Popovic.
Point in the chat: Korea has a higher block on the left side. I would argue that doesn't matter because Boskovic's favorite shot is cross court. I think the blocking advantage that you would need against her would come from the middle, and I don't think Korea has that.
Yeah. All right, Rob, that's breaking down. So if our predictions are right, we're going to end with 3 Olympic medals in indoor for Europe. So again, 2 or 3, just like you said, it's perfect. And guys, hopefully everyone's able to watch this weekend. They're on at weird times. Hopefully you figured out a stream to watch, whoever's broadcasting it. But let's talk quickly here about indoor beach, specifically on the men's side. Let's do women first. Just because Switzerland won bronze this morning. So great job to the Swiss team of Heidrich and Verge Dupre. Unfortunately, they will not be at Euro Beach Volley, But I mean, still a huge win for them, winning Euro Beach Volley last year, bronze medal this year. Like this team is a team that's trending up, and also interesting because they're two former blockers, and it really have been able to make it work playing together. And a really fun team to watch. Gradina Kravchenoka, unfortunately, 4th place, but still, I would consider that a success for them. I don't think everyone expected that team to make it that far.
I was just going to say that same thing. Gradina Kravchenoka, really good performance. Like that, it sucks to finish 4th in the Olympics because you lost your last 2 games and you were very close to a medal, but making it to the semifinals in this like cutthroat, crazy deep tournament on both the men's and the women's side, I think is a really nice achievement for Latvia. And you have the same thing on the men, a chance to medal there in the same spot.
Yes, and surprisingly, no Brazilians at all, either men's or women's, in the medal. That's unbelievable. And also, Rob, of course, I have to say congrats to Team AA, Alex Kleinman, and April Ross winning the gold medal.
One of the few like positives to come out of this Olympics for USA Volleyball. We've got that in the indoor women, of course. But I want to make one point only about with the U.S. women's beach team. Alex Kleinman, and I don't think people are talking about this enough. Alex Kleinman barely missed making the Olympic roster for the American indoor team in 2016. Yeah. This time last Olympics, she was not even a beach player. She made the switch to beach and worked all the way, like she had 1 extra year, of course, but she made the switch to beach and won an Olympic gold medal in the span of 1 quad. That is absolutely unbelievable. Amazing. And I don't think people are talking about that enough. That's just incredible. And April Ross now winning all 3 colors of Olympic medal, which is
this one probably feels the best. This one probably.
It has to. The journey that those 2 girls went on, starting at the end of the last Olympics, in completely different places in their careers to where they are now, is an all-time great story, and I don't think people are talking about that enough. So huge shout outs to the American women Olympic gold medalists in beach volleyball. Amazing.
But let me tie that into overall like beach volleyball and European volleyball, because we saw that happen with a few teams in beach volleyball at the end of last cycle. Sarah Pavin also was huge in Champions League indoor, played on some of the best clubs in Europe, and then obviously was number 1 ranked in the world for a long time, won the World Championships with Melissa Jimena Paredes. Unfortunately, not a good Olympics for them. Maggie Kozic joining Laura Ludwig. Again, Kozic, very high level indoor player, both in club volleyball and for the German national team. So, Rob, do you think there's any indoor player that you would pick maybe to go to the beach after this cycle?
Wow, what a good question.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one for sure.
Really tough question. Yeah, because it takes a certain type of player, obviously. Like Kleinman, it made a little bit of sense for just because of her size and her general ball control ability. There's so much to learn though about even how to move in the sand and how to learn how to read the game, how to block like that, or how to defend. And the next Olympics is only 3 years away, so you don't get 5 years to learn the game like Kleinman did. You only get 3. Yeah, that's a really tough one. It clearly it can be done. I've said for a long time, Dan, that I think Graham Vigrass and Stephen Marshall would be a sick beach pairing for Canada.
They would be a really good beach pairing.
I would like to see that one day. European wise, I don't know. That's a really good question. I can't think of anything right now.
For some reason, I don't know why this sticks in my head, but Celeste Plack from the Netherlands, I think would be great on the beach. Just because she's an overall player as an outside hitter. She's very athletic and hits super hard, great serve. And I feel like she would be, her game would translate pretty well to the beach, just given her reception ability and her attacking ability. And obviously the Dutch women have such a storied past when it comes to women's beach volleyball. So
good pick.
Could be good.
Very good pick. I don't want to lose her on the indoor side, but I think that's a pretty good pick.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. But Vigrass and Marshall, I agree, would be a good pick as well. Somebody in the chat says, oh, hey, Dan, will you be in Austria for CV European Beach Volleyball Championships? Yes, I will, Oliver. Yeah, give me a shout when we're there. He was my guide in Paris. Okay, I remember you, Oliver. Okay, we'll meet again. That's good. Volleyball is a small world, guys. Okay,
yeah, totally.
Men's beach. The perfect matchup, Rob.
Oh,
Mol Sorum again.
I'm so happy that we got this matchup because again, this time when we were talking this time last week, Anders and Christian had lost one of the games in pools to the Russians that they just beat in the semis, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they didn't have that good of a pool play performance, and now here they are against Krasilnikov, Stoyanovskiy, like exactly like we wanted. I think it's the matchup that I wanted, either that or against the Qataris, Sharif Ahmed. I would have liked to see either matchup.
No, we're on the European show, Rob. This is the perfect matchup.
I'm excited about this, and I've been watching a little bit more beach than I normally do because obviously it's the Olympics. But you made the point last week, Dan, that people have started serving Anders Mol a little bit more for the beach volley Vikings. But since I've been watching, I think they've gone back to serving Sorum, and it's worked better for Norway. I'm surprised to see that shift.
Yeah, we'll see what Krasilnikov, Stoyanovskiy. Actually, this might be a good opportunity because if you guys don't know, this was a rematch between the European Beach Volleyball Championships in 2020, where these teams placed off in the finals. You guys can see the wonderful website here. But yeah, I feel like they're gonna go back to Anders Mol because guess who you have at the net blocking him, and maybe one of the only guys who can slow him down.
Great point.
Is Oleg Stoyanovskiy. Yeah, so this matchup. Okay, one thing I want to point out about this matchup though, Rob, these teams are so young still, and they're meeting in an Olympic finals.
Great point. Do you have their ages, like their actual ages on hand? Because yeah, off the top of my head, like the beach volley Vikings aren't older than 25 or 26, right?
No, I think they might be even younger. Okay, let me pull it up while you talk a little bit here.
Those games are the time zones are really difficult. They're tonight my time. They're very early in the morning European time. I think the semis might be at 3 a.m.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of Norwegians who are going to be waking up very early.
The bronze medal match I think is about 3 a.m. your time, Dan, and the gold medal match might be 4:30 a.m. your time if I'm doing the math correctly. Yeah, that hurts, but those are going to be really, really good matches. Latvia against Qatar in the bronze medal match, so a chance for 3 European medals out of 3 in men's beach volleyball, which is crazy.
Yeah, and also Sorum 25, 1995, and then Mol 23. So
wow,
it's crazy because these guys have been around forever. But when you think about it, like this is really like their first like Olympics where they're like contending, right? Like this is the first one for them. Like think about how many like we had guys like Jake Gibb who are still playing when they're 45, right? Like we could be watching the beach volleyball Vikings for another 20 years, which is insane. Because
I hope we are. I really hope we are watching them for that long. Because this is a chance to like start a internationally dominant legacy. Like clearly they've been the international favorites for a few years now, but you're right. This is their first legitimate shot at the Olympics. They can really start a dynasty if they win this match tonight. That really could be special.
So to answer your question from earlier, I looked up it was a why question. Anyway, the targets in 2020, that match that they played against each other, the Russians targeted Mol. He hit 14 times, scored 14 times, Sorum 10 times. And then on the other side, the Vikings kept it away from Oleg Stoyanovskiy, which I would agree with because he is an absolutely unbelievable hitter. And I remember from that match that Christian Sorum usually has a pretty good read on Krasilnikov. I feel like Krasilnikov's a guy who is extremely precise with his shots, able to hit a bunch of different tricky shots, but Sorum is one guy who's able to track it down and take it back up.
I think Christian Sorum has a pretty good read on most players in the world.
Very true.
That's a good point in that matchup. I think they'd be crazy not to serve Krasilnikov pretty relentlessly.
All right, Rob, predictions: Russia or Norway for men's beach?
I think I'm going to go with Norway. I think I'm going to go with Norway if they can handle the likelihood of Anders Mol being targeted in passing. I think they will handle that, and I think they're going to win gold. But I think it might go 3. At least I kind of want it to for a viewer.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems like we've been. This is amazing that these two teams are playing each other in the finals because I feel like we've been building up to this for so long. Okay, so that's men's beach. That's I can't wait for that one. And do you want to go into Euro beach volley for a bit here, Rob? Guess done Olympic talk for now. We're going to talk about Euro beach volley here for a guy's sec, and then finish with the EuroVolley woman preview, and then we'll done a very long episode because we have so much to get over today. Just a couple things I want to talk about for Euro beach volley. The one thing is, I think the Latvians, I feel like both on the indoor side and both on the men's and women's side.
Yeah.
Latvia, I mean, Plavin's talks making it to the semifinals. That was unexpected, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And same with Graudina and Kravchenoka, both Latvian teams going very far in the tournaments, which I love to see. So I think they're definitely on people's radar a bit more than they were before. Let's see, a couple other teams. Ludovic Kozic had a great tournament. I think they're raised their stock heading into Euro beach volley, and I think Ludovic really wants a Euro beach volley because I feel like that pairing has not won a major tournament in a little while. So I feel like this is the one that they're going to target because they're probably keep in mind teams are training to target the Olympics, obviously, but the peak form is still going to last for EuroVolley. So teams will be pretty peak conditioning as well.
Especially with the quick turnaround. When does it start? Like next week?
Yeah, teams are flying straight from Tokyo to Austria. So
that's crazy. I want to shout out Tolle and Wiekler, the Germans,
yes,
who
that too, yeah.
beat the U.S. in the playoffs. If they're playing Euro beach volley, I kind of like their stock too.
They for sure are. And the thing about that team is that they've been kind of dropping down the world rankings for a little bit, sliding. Right. But after this Olympics, I feel like, okay, this team is right back where they were kind of in the 2018 like World Championships kind of era, and they're going to be a threat. Also, the Nikolai Lupo, I think, gained a lot of fans this Olympics.
Italians, yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and they had a tough match, a very close match against the Qatar team, which is a tough team to face off against. But they're still showing that they're playing at the absolute highest level, even getting a bit older here. Okay, so let's go on to our last topic of the day. Hopefully you guys are still with us. Remember, if you want to watch Euro Beach Volley, $2.99 guys on EuroVolley TV, and you can watch every single match. Also, we're streaming all the matches up until the quarterfinals on YouTube, so set that in your calendar. Just sit back, relax, turn on the TV, watch beach volleyball all day. And also, Rob, talking about EuroVolley, which we're about to talk about, we also have a deal on EuroVolley TV as well if you want to watch all those games, so make sure to check that out.
It's an absolute steal. This will be the first European Championships that I'll actually be able to watch in the USA. So if you happen to be in the US, EuroVolley TV is an option for you in the US, and it's so cheap. It's a no-brainer for me.
And absolutely underrated tournament, I think. I think just the sheer level, quality of games and the amount of games that are going to happen over the next 2 months after the Olympics is like one of the best times for volleyball. Because
both EuroVolley tournaments, in both indoor tournaments, men's and women's, in 2019 were some of the best volleyball I've ever seen.
Yeah, exactly. And I think because the other continental championships aren't really like that, Rob, for example, Norsica, we don't, I don't know if I'm going to watch that one.
I am not going to watch that one. Everyone's going to send B teams, and it doesn't mean as much in any other continent as it does in Europe, for sure.
So I have 3 questions for you here on EuroVolley Women here today, Rob. First one, who is your dark horse team for the EuroVolley Women's Tournament?
So I have a couple. The first one I want to talk about is Sweden in Pool D.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Sweden in Pool D. So that pool is difficult. Finland, Romania, Sweden, Netherlands, Turkey, and Ukraine. Like that's a pretty stacked pool. But just in case you guys didn't know, Sweden has a player by the name of Isabel Haak, who is one of those singularly dominant, like capable of carrying a team to one of those kinds of players. And I don't think anybody really talks about the Swedish national team because they're just not quite as good around her. But we've seen what Haak can do in club, and she's an absolute freak of nature, one of the best in the world. I don't think people are talking about Sweden quite enough. And
Okay.
then another one.
And I think, yeah, we talked about her on this show during the EuroVolley qualifiers. And what was she averaging, Rob? Like 8 or 9 points per set?
Yeah, like a number that I didn't even understand.
And if you guys are fans of like volleyball statistics, a pretty good mark like for a first option is like what, 5.5 points.
Yeah.
For the really good, like the Iganus, Boscoviches, 6, maybe a bit above 6, but she was way past that into the stratosphere.
Yeah, and still so young and can like her body can handle that kind of a set
Yes.
load.
Yeah, for sure. So Rob, do you have any more picks or should I go with mine?
Yeah, I actually think Bulgaria might be one to watch as well. I
okay.
hope I didn't steal that from you, Dan.
Nope.
But as I did the preview on them, you guys cannot possibly overestimate the impact of Bulgarian home fans. I think that is a tremendous
good
advantage
angle,
for
yeah.
Bulgaria. I think it's a tremendous easier than some of the others. I think their biggest competition is Poland. So Bulgaria can come out of Pool B at home with a pretty good seed into the quarterfinals or into the round of 16, excuse me.
There you go. So for my pick is a team that I've seen play live before several times, and that is Germany, who
Okay, same pool. I like that pick.
Yeah, especially because I got to see a lot of very good, talented young women play at the January Tokyo Olympic qualifiers, where Germany, maybe we forget it, but was actually like pretty close, right on the heels of Turkey to qualify for the Olympics. And they were doing so with a pretty young team, a team that's gotten better over the last couple of years, Rob. Players like Hannah Ortman, who played a massive role in Monza over the past couple of years. We have 2 great middle blockers in Marie Scholzel and Camilla Weitzel, who are a couple of years faster, a couple of years stronger. So they're good players as well. Kimberly Druniak, Anna Pogany, the libero. So I think there's a lot of talented young players on this German team who are, they're ready to make a statement in the world of women's volleyball. And also, Poland's definitely tough in that pool, like you said, Bulgaria, but Poland without Aja Volosh. So they're going to be a little bit more beatable than they were maybe at those Tokyo qualifiers.
Agreed. I think that's a good pick. Good breakdown.
All right. So that's question number 1. Question number 2. Also, I was thinking Romania, maybe. They've got a good chance.
Well, we'll get to them in just a second with your next question, I think.
All right, let's go breakout player of EuroVolley women. Who you got, Rob?
Mine is the 18-year-old Romanian opposite, Alexia Karutsashu. If you haven't been watching the show for that long, or if you have, you may have heard us talk about her for System 9 Yeşilyurt Turkey winning CEV Challenge Cup this year in club, and she was the MVP. And again, she's 18. She's 18 years old. She led the team in scoring and in attempts in like every statistical category in European Golden League, where Romania like barely failed to make it out of the pools. They had like a 3-way tie at 4-2. She's good size. She has an elite left arm already at age 18, and like it has pretty good range. Is like a legitimately mature, high volume point scorer, and a lot of people just don't know about her yet because she's so ridiculously young. And especially playing at home in Romania, I would expect Alexia Karutsashu to really break out this tournament. You're gonna want to watch her, especially her against Isabel Hawk head to head. That's gonna be amazing.
Yes, for sure, it's going to be amazing. But Rob, I have you beat here. I have a player even younger than and we talked about her last week a little bit. Irina Fedorov-Steva, the Russian outside hitter, who just was playing the other day in the U19 underage championships, and now she came, was a huge part of the Russian Olympic team, playing as well as they did during the Olympics, and I think
outperforming expectations.
And she is going to be a workhorse for them in EuroVolley. I think with the addition of her to the team, Russia is a lot more dangerous than perhaps we were expecting before. I think people are already starting to learn about her, and it's just a matter of time before she's a household volleyball name, if I can use that term.
That's a great pick. I agree that her ability at such a young age, like the way she played in the Olympics, is like that makes Russia much more of a contender than I think they were before. And they have a very tough pool. And I now, with that combined with how well Goncharova is playing, I expect them to make it out of that pool.
And 2004, Rob, I have a little brother born in 2004. Like, it's interesting to see the difference in physical development, let's say.
2004 is a number that I can't get through my head like that.
And he's still in high school. He's going into his last year of high school, and Irina's playing in EuroVolley. Hopefully she's able to play, and school doesn't interfere, but we'll see. And my last question for the show. So guys, get in your questions if there's anything you want us to discuss before the end of the show. But what's your finals prediction here, Rob, for EuroVolley women?
Wow, that's quite the question. It depends on who gets on what sides of the bracket. I don't totally know how all the crossovers match up.
Ignore crossovers. Let's not think about that.
Okay.
I agree. That's too hard.
All right. So I kind of want to pick a rematch. I kind of want to pick Serbia-Turkey again.
I don't know about that though. I mean, it's silly saying this about a team that's playing for the Olympic bronze and did the best out of any European team. But I feel like I don't know if Serbia can do this whole Boskovic show for an entire EuroVolley, especially right after the Olympics. That is an incredible amount to ask of one player.
It is. It definitely is. I'm not sure if that's fair to expect, but even though we now kind of have perhaps a blueprint for beating Serbia, I think that the U.S. got a little bit lucky last night, and that Boskovic just didn't have quite her best day. I think she can still carry a team as far as that team needs to go. It's not great. It's not like a very clean or beautiful method of winning volleyball games just to set the same person over and over again. But Boskovic is so ridiculously good. I think it's possible.
Okay, just before I give my pick, Saku in the chat. Rob, listen to this. Fedorov-Steva will still be 20 years old in Paris Olympics.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy. How many? Wow. She can break Sergei Tityukin, the Russian male legend, played in 6 Olympic Games. And if Fedorov-Steva can have a decently long career, she can play at least that many.
All right. Rob, my finals pick is going to be Italy versus Turkey. Like I said, I think Serbia is going to run out of steam at some point in EuroVolley. I don't think it's fair, nor I don't think they've won the last 2 in a row. I feel like maybe they're going to run out of steam here, going for a 3rd in a row. Italy, but I think Italy has enough younger players other than Aganu, people like Petrini, who we saw younger player play really well in the Olympics. I think they have some other options. So if Aganu wants to rest a couple of games, she can. If she wants to play, score 40 points, she can. So I think Italy's, and we've seen them get to the end of really tough tournaments. And I'm also going to pick Turkey. Because I think their roster works really well for longer tournaments like EuroVolley, where you have to switch up the lineups because you're playing so many matches. You're playing 5 pool play matches plus 8th finals, plus quarterfinals, plus semifinals, plus that's a lot of matches. And a team that's deep with young players like Turkey, I feel like has an advantage going into every match because they know, especially going against some of the weaker teams, that they can still beat you, even if they're playing, Senalu or some of their other younger players. So I like Turkey versus Italy, and looking forward to it.
That's a really good point, and you outlined it pretty well when we were talking about Turkey half an hour ago. So yeah, if you guys want to hear more about Turkey, rewind to earlier in the show. Yes. We talked about them with the Women's Olympics.
Or yeah, Rob, any team, because you've done previews for a bunch of teams. So guys, make sure to check those out.
I have done a lot of previews on EuroVolley women's teams, and there will be more coming about breaking down each pool. I agree with that point about Turkey. Their depth is a huge advantage in a tournament like this. Their depth, their youth, and their high-level experience. Yeah, you can put lots of different combinations out there and survive. It's very different from the Olympics in that way, just based on how the tournament works.
Mm-hmm. All right. Are there any questions in the chat we want to address? I think some people asked about Veda Akimova, who I think is going to get some looks in EuroVolley as well, because you can't. I'm not sure if Goncharova will play all of EuroVolley, and even if she does, she probably won't play the whole thing. So they'll definitely start some younger talent at the opposite position. For Russia, Serbia versus Italy, of course, that's an amazing match. Boskovic versus Aganu, they're both incredible. Can't pick one. Let's see.
Somebody asking about EuroVolley men. We'll get to that a lot in
Yes.
the next couple weeks because that starts in early September. The women's tournament starts, I think, August 18th. So that's happening first, and then we'll get to the men's shortly thereafter.
Yeah, probably no show next week. I will be at EuroBeahVolley in Vienna, so hopefully you guys just watch that instead. We'll see you though, and then Rob, for sure we'll get to a EuroVolley men preview. Yeah, Slovenia is going to be a factor there after that incredible VNL performance. Ivandro Pires asks, what do you guys think about Hawk playing the 2024 Olympics for another country? I don't think that can happen. I think she's
it's the timing is impossible. She would have had to get citizenship somewhere else.
And also she's done so many good things with the Swedish team. They've made it like farther than they ever have. I love a player who's still willing to play and represents their federation, even if that federation might not be an Italy or a Serbia where they're in the finals every time. So,
yeah, I agree. It's not our place to talk about people changing citizenships, but I agree that I would rather have a really good player stick with his or her home country. I think the time when it makes sense is sort of like a Cuba situation on the men's side when there's a lot more factors involved than just volleyball. But I think we can leave it at that. All
right, Rob, we've been on for 80 minutes. I think that's enough. Anything you want to shout out? Anything you want to say before we close up here?
Just enjoy the Olympic finals, men's beach volleyball finals tonight, my time, final like gold medal match for men's indoor tomorrow morning or tomorrow European time, women's the day after that. There's a lot of incredible volleyball coming up the next couple of days. It's been really fun to follow it. It really has. It's delivered. The Olympics is delivered like we wanted it to. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. Thanks for contributing in the chat, and we will talk to you next time.